Hello and welcome to 5 and 5. Today we have Heather Morrison with us. Heather is the co-founder and CEO of Handi. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So Heather, before we start the questions, could you share a little bit about Handi and what it is that you do there?
Yeah, absolutely. So Handi is a brand on a mission to put pleasure within reach for the disabled community, or starting with the disabled community. We are a sexual health and wellness company for the disabled community, creating the first line of sex toys for disabled people.
Wow.
And busting down taboos that sit around sex and disability along the way, because there are many, and just having that conversation really helps put that more into the forefront for people.
Amazing. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing your answers to your questions. Without further ado, let's spin the spinning wheel of categories. Can you see that?
Yes.
All right.
This is exciting. And also anxiety inducing.
Ooh, business for good.
Perfect.
How
It's like
appropriate.
that.
Okay. Great. Okay. First things. Do you think that all businesses should be businesses for good?
I think all businesses have the opportunity to be businesses for good or to do good. My background before getting into Handi was marketing and advertising. And so a lot of that comes down to a brand purpose, or why brands exist. And very few brands, when you get down to the nuts and bolts of a brand or a business, very few were created solely for the purpose of monetary gains. There's usually a deeper story or something that's a bit more interesting, and a reason that drove people to start a business in the first place, because starting a business isn't easy. And if it's just for the money, maybe you'll make it, but you might probably fall off along the way, because it does take a while before you get to that money. And so a lot of times you need something else to kind of drive you. And so I think that because of that, all businesses have the potential to be businesses for good. Now, whether or not they all are is a different story, but I think that there's always that potential there to understand why they were founded, and why they exist beyond turning profit.
And I mean, what role do you think that businesses or brands should play in this day and age?
Yeah, well, I think that's changing quite rapidly. I think brands have more right to play in this space and make a difference than potentially they have in the past. I think we're looking at, how people are reacting, responding to even what's going on in the world around us now. And we see that people are not as trusting as they used to be of big institutions, of government, of even the government people that they elected. And what's happening is that the trust pendulum swings, and it swings constantly kind of back and forth between big institutions and government. And then there's a space for brand when trust in those things is diminished. And so we know at this point that trust has really reached an all-time low with respect to a lot of our bigger institutions, some of our governments, depending on which countries we reside in. And that really gives brands a really lovely place to play in, a really lovely role in people's lives, to carve out what meaning and value they can have beyond product, and to start to play a more trusted role. So I think people are looking for that, and the brands that are doing it and doing it well are brands that people not only purchase but rally around, and brands who are not scared to take a stand on something and to stand for something. I think there's more of a role to play than before.
I agree, and very well put. So Heather, if you were granted one wish for good, what would you wish for?
Well, I mean, Trump lost the election, so that might have been my wish a couple weeks ago.
Your prayers have been answered.
Trump supporters listening to this podcast. But now that that's happened, I can do anything for good.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose I would eradicate COVID with my one wish, at the least in the medium.
Are you familiar with the UN Sustainable Goals?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so if UN development, sustainable development goals. So so I think there are 16 different development goals.
Don't ask me to recite them.
One being good health and well-being, and another quality education. Which of those do you think is more important?
Sorry, which are the two of them?
Yeah. So good health and well-being, or quality education, or if you were to focus on one of those two, what would it be?
Yeah, well, I think one begets the other. So I'd probably focus on education, because I think, and I'm sure the data probably supports this, if you've got a good education, then you can be informed and educated about what breeds good health. Where it's like that element of, fishing, teaching a fisherman or person to fish, for example. So yeah, that's where I'd focus if I had all that power. Maybe one day we will.
And last question. What is there a socially conscious brand that you admire most out there?
I think probably Patagonia is one that comes to mind, because they've just got such a lovely ethos around sustainability and responsibility, and they are not afraid to take risks as a brand to make sure that they're upholding those values. I think the fact that they, for example, tell people not to come shopping on Black Friday and encourage people to get outside, which is also REI's sort of positioning, but also they encourage people not to buy their clothing and to actually reuse it, not to buy new stuff. I think for a clothing brand that obviously makes their money doing that, to tell people the exact opposite is incredibly brave and really just shows that they stand by their mission. So yeah, Patagonia, also the likes of REI, they do amazing things. They're not in my space, but I definitely look up to them.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much, Heather. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you, and
for you.
All the great work you've been doing. And yeah, let's hopefully speak again soon.
Amazing. Thanks so much.
This has been 5 and 5.